Orb, I just wanted one thing. I wanted a reuniting of Novak and Jolenta. That's all I asked for. That's all I wanted. They technically did, but only for a very brief fraction of a second. My gosh, episode 20 of Orb really, really killed me. I think all of my hope in all these characters is completely lost at this point. I mean, Novak has changed. Novak has definitely changed. He definitely has a different perspective on the heretics and what is causing all this, but damn. I was like, their reuniting is going to fix everything, right? And they couldn't give me that. They just couldn't give me that. Yes, I have been getting so many comments and so many chatters that have been asking the same question. Where is your Orb reaction videos? Where's your impression videos of Orb? Yes, I've been covering this series for 15 episodes? And ever since episode 16, I haven't really been covering this series. And there's a really good reason why. I just haven't really been liking it as much as I used to. I love the series. Like, it's a 10 out of 10 series, but ever since episode 16, ever since, post Badini stuff, just kind of lost me. And that's really because if you guys have been following my stuff, you know that one of the main reasons why I love the Orb series so much is I love the aspect of the scholar. I love the idea of craving knowledge despite the fact that the society itself will come down upon you. Death will come for you if you seek out this knowledge. I love that stuff. I crave that stuff. It is so good. And I feel like ever since 16, it hasn't really had that. A lot of these characters are really kind of driven by other things. And yes, it's a very good driving force. I mean, pretty much everybody is around the idea of, obviously, at this point, not like in the church. We are really getting into the idea of essentially the non-believers versus the believers. Now, it is interesting, the idea that, yes, a lot of these characters like Schmitt, like Jolenta herself, the actual leader of the Liberation Front, is a firm believer. Like, these people do believe in God, just in a different way. It's really just an anti-religion thing. It's anti-man-made religion. That's what people don't like. That's what Schmitt doesn't like. That's what Jolenta doesn't like. They want to break out of that. They want to allow information to flourish, and it's not currently being done. And so I do like that aspect, but it's not as interesting. That's really what it is. I'm fine with the story it's going for, and it's got some very interesting characters still, despite the fact that I don't like Draka. Draka's a lot of my hang-up. I just don't like Draka's character. Draka's character is just money, because dad sought money and dad died to money, and she wants stability. Draka wants stability. That's really what it is. And I just don't find that to be a very interesting character. She just doesn't click for me. It's just not a very good character for me. I like Schmitt. He's weird. I like Schmitt's character. He's super weird. And yes, I wanted to see what they did with Jolenta. It was obvious that Jolenta was going to be the leader. It just obvious. The moment that it finally confronts her, I'm like, well, okay, there it is. It's Jolenta. We knew that was coming. And yes, it kind of all fits for Novak and his, still being an Inquisitor at this point, which sucks. I really thought that he would push back on that whole thing. And like I said, I think he has changed. But rather than kind of just go through episode 20, which I'll get into the details of 20, I do want to kind of give my perspective on each of these characters to get people caught up on this series. I don't know that I'll still continue it after 20. I really wanted to get on here and kind of give my perspective on the series so far. But again, it's not really been giving me much to really kind of chew on. Like I said, Draka's character is really the biggest hang up for me. When we first get introduced to her character, again, it's this idea that at one morning, dad's dead, and there's this money that he was trying to get. It's this idea of constantly striving to make money, and yes, he ended up dying from that. And that's when Drov comes into the picture and kind of gives the idea of, not believing in God. God doesn't exist, just focused on having some sort of conviction. I do like how that conviction sort of plays into Jolenta's character later on. That was a kind of nice little, not really a twist, but more of a kind of a eye-opening moment for the character. But yes, this idea of just trying to seek knowledge itself, which does kind of play into, yes, what we've kind of seen with Badini, what we've seen with Oczy, all these other characters, the idea of giving up just that firm belief in God, and this is what everybody wants you to believe, and seeking out knowledge instead. And that sort of does play into, yes, trying to figure out ways of ordering to, evolve their group, these nomads that, have nothing else besides pillaging, giving them something to kind of build towards, that way they can make their money. Draka's whole thing is just making money in order to have, again, security. Draka wants security. That's their driving force. That's their conviction, is security. And money means security. Evolution and technology to get more money. And again, I do like the idea that sort of plays on to Schmitt. Again, Schmitt's easily out of this whole group, despite the fact of getting back to Jolenta. Schmitt is probably easily my favorite character of this little arc because he's just weird. He's a bit eccentric. This guy's a little It feels like he's a little off, but he's very grounded. Truth be told, to be a little bit personal here, Schmitt's kind of like me. I like Schmitt's mindset. The idea of believing that there is a God, but not liking the God that man makes. Not liking the idea of religion itself. These forms that people make, the translations that they give. Here's all these books. This is what we believe it says. Don't read it. Believe what we said it says. And that's really been the biggest problem with a lot of these characters that they're kind of dealing with, is the idea of not learning how to read, like Jolenta's situation, Oczy, and how Badini didn't really like the idea of him learning to read and write. This idea of don't read it. Just believe what we say it says. And that's really what Schmitt's whole thing is. I don't like religion as a system. I love God. I'm a naturalist. I like the idea of what God created. That's what's perfect. That's the whole perfect thing there. And I like how that plays off of Draka. That's probably the only thing I've liked about Draka's character, is I like how the two of them sort of parallel each other quite a bit. They both don't believe in religion, but Schmitt believes in God. Draka doesn't. Schmitt believes in nature. Draka wants to build from nature. So they have this similarity, but they pivot there. I like that whole moment, that first conversation they have is really funny. The idea of like, oh, you're just like me. No, we're totally different. They have that brief moment of like, we're so alike. They agree. Nope. Don't agree right here. That's that hard stop. So you don't believe in God? Oh, okay. That's weird. Well, why? Oh, well, I don't believe that. Well, who's right? Let's flip a coin. Let's just flip a coin. Again, I really like Schmitt's character because, again, he's so like honest about what he believes in, and he's really kind of driven to offset the falsities that's kind of being taught, which again is this idea of this structure of religion, which again is sort of the base of what this entire story is going into, which is, okay, we've dealt with this whole situation of scholars are seeking out truth. We're trying to exchange information here. We're trying to advance civilization. We're trying to advance our understanding of the universe and how the earth itself fits in it, but the church won't let us. And so we've been kind of slapped down so many times. We keep getting information out there and we get slapped down again. Now there's finally a group of people that are like, we're fed up. And that's really true, that the society itself is shifting. Society itself is sick of this church. They're sick of this structure. They're sick of being kept down. And again, hunted down. Inquisitors coming in, hunting them down. And it, yes, implies the idea that with the shift of leadership, which I believe they've pretty much confirmed at this point, it's been shifted. There's new bishops here. We have Antoni's got his power. Antoni's been seeking it out. There's been a shift in power. And now they're getting to the point where the people are fed up. That's like that whole opening segment with Schmitt's past, is they're finally fed up. People are finally fed up with this. They're sick of it. And they're finally wanting to rise back up. They're going to give up this idea. And yes, with Schmitt, he grew up in the tragedies that caused. His own father and his uncle literally killing each other over it. I'm sick of it. I want to be part of this liberation front. I want to push against this. And let's get into the whole idea of the heretic liberation front, which is the idea of trying to get that information out there. Create instability within the church. It's already loosening. They're already losing that power. We just got to give that one last little bump, which they've implied with Jolenta's leadership is the idea of getting this book out. She knows that Oczy wrote this. When she was with Oczy and Badini, they were creating this concept of the movement of the earth. And she loves it. It's inspired her. She likes it. And she wants to put that story out there. And she knew that Oczy wrote a story. Knew that Oczy wrote that. Now, I didn't really catch it. I don't remember them ever really implying what happened in the medium between that. I guess it just comes down to she realized at some point a book was wrote. Oczy wrote it. And I need to get hold of it. We're assuming Grabowski, when he found all of what Badini created, all the tattoos on the heads, he went ahead and copied all those over to a book and then apparently printed it. Apparently Grabowski printed that out and distributed it. And now it could just be that he had, it seems like, only one copy of it. And this is what essentially they found, and that got to Jolenta, and now Jolenta wants to print it. And again, kind of implies the idea that it was a single book. That each one of these was, of course, a page for this single book, and he got it all copied over, and then that's what they end up finding, and now it's getting over to Jolenta. So it's interesting that the idea that this whole thing is, if we can print this and mass distribute it, people will be able to read it because it's simple, and then that information gets out there and inspires more people. It's always been that way. And I do like the idea that it almost seems like Jolenta, which we finally get into Jolenta. Jolenta has sort of been inspired multiple fold. And yes, it implied it, but it's not completely 100% here that, yes, Jolenta taught Oczy how to read and write. So they spent a lot of time together. So there seems to be a lot of what was pushing Oczy and what Oczy had, pushed back with Badini is sort of in kind of offset to her. It almost feels like a lot of the arguments that Oczy and Badini had is sort of probably was something that he spoke to Jolenta about at some point. The idea of, yes, this information being very simple, this information being something that a lot of people can pick up on, that anybody can pick up on it, it can inspire future generations, all this kind of stuff. And so now Jolenta is taking pretty much everything that we learned from Oczy and Badini and then passing it on to the masses. And that's really kind of seemed like her final thing here. Despite the fact that there is I like the whole later segment, like her last conversation that she had with Draka, is the idea that, yes, it does feel like she was inspired by this stuff. And that despite she having this really bad past, that she wanted to seek out this thing. It is interesting that she does kind of put a little bit of knowledge upon Draka on the idea that, yes, don't live on your convictions alone. Convictions are good, but don't ignore those around you. I'm curious what that means. I really am curious what that means, and it sucks that she's gone already to not really get a full idea of it. My assumption there is the idea that, yes, she was so driven by this conviction that everything fell apart around her, and she didn't see what was in front of her. Possibly inferring her relationship with her father, that she possibly didn't go back to talk to her father. Maybe that's what her convictions to push this out, to do this liberation front. She never went back and talked to her father. Which does lead into the note that she left behind to Draka. She says that it has something to do... It was a letter that she wants to be mailed out. And she says simply that it has something to do with what was in the back of the book. You read it. It was Oczy saying what essentially Raphael wanted, which was to give some of the proceeds to Potok. Now, yeah, it's been a while. Potok's been dead for a while. I think. They at least imply that where the address that he was living is no longer him. I believe they even said that he was dead. So he's long gone. So I'm assuming that what will happen here is that letter, yes, might be addressed to Potok, and possibly by some chance, Novak will get a hold of it, and that will at least remind him of Raphael, which was basically the original person that kind of impressed upon him this whole thing, which we got into recently with the idea of him recalling Raphael, knowing this is sort of the root of everything and wanting to stop that. But there's a good chance that it could at least have Jolenta's name in it. And that's what's going to really mess with Novak. I think he's going to intercept that letter, and it's going to have Jolenta's name in it, implying what all kind of unfolded and wanting them to have at least know that that information got out, that it's here, it's been printed. I don't know. There's a side of me that almost hopes that the letter itself is just to Novak. And she's telling Draka that this is that letter, and just to, not want to look into it, I guess. It could be a good chance that is literally just a letter Jolenta wanted to send to Novak, knowing full well that this is all over, and she's probably done at that point. Either way, it sucks. I think, again, that last little moment there of, again, standing in front of all of them and trying to essentially keep them distracted while everybody flees, blowing herself up right in front of her father. That whole scene sucked. That sucked so bad. And I knew it was coming because the bags that she was laying out there, and they've been putting so much emphasis on the technology of explosives that they've kind of put together and they're using. Yeah, I knew it was coming. There was a side of me that was hoping that she would see Novak and then just stop and then want to speak to them. But her convictions, there's a side of me that almost believes that because of her convictions, she wouldn't do it. I think she even implied before then in the scene with Draka that if she were to see her father, that she's not sure if she'd want to, would it cause her to hesitate? Basically, I've driven myself to do this one thing. I'm afraid of seeing my father because he might cause me to hesitate in my path. This is the path that I've chosen, and he is opposite to me. And that sort of shows how these two paths can converge and push against each other. And if I do see him, it might cause me to. The way that whole thing ends, it's almost like she probably did say Novak. And she probably chose, I need to do this. I won't let it make me hesitate. This has to be done. I have to basically get rid of all this evidence and push them off course. I'm dedicated to try to make sure that Oczy and Badini's message gets out. And I will basically, with them, be another sacrifice to this purpose. It's that constant handing over that purpose and that conviction. It sucks. Again, it sucks in a hand flying over there. He's like, I thought I seen something. I think I seen something. My eyes are messing with me or something like that, and picks up the hand. I was like, don't slip the glove on. It was like inside of me, the thing. Don't tell me he's going to keep the hand and he's going to slip the glove on and go, oh, it was her or something. Please don't. Please don't. Again, I think the letter's going to have Jolenta's name in it, and it's going to be about the Liberation Front, and he's going to realize that was her. It's going to finally confirm it there. It just sucks. Novak's character right now sucks. It sucks because for those who have been following my coverage, I have loved Novak's character. I think he is extremely fascinating. He's super nasty. And again, because he's an Inquisitor, this is what he believes. And again, that's what I've always kind of tried to keep my perspective on is each individual, despite no matter what they're doing, you could acknowledge they're doing bad. It's really looking in their mind and how they think of that, why they think this is the right thing to do. And Novak's character has always been driven by, yes, this belief system. And yes, his connection to the bishop. This idea that this is something he has to do. It's the right thing to do. And now he's driven by, it's kind of shifted. It went from really like, I have to take down the heretics. They always lie to you. I've been lied to enough. I know they're wrong. I'll get information out of them. Now it's turning to the idea that, yes, he's starting to separate the two. He's separating the person in front of them to the overall cause. That's the key thing there. He's always blamed the individual person for the cause. Now he's looking at the individual and separating the cause. I have to find the root. It's not their fault. They're not the enemy because of what happened to Jolenta. My hope was that he was completely going to leave the cause because of what happened to Jolenta. Somebody was going to get to him and tell him what exactly happened, or he's going to find out exactly what's going to happen. I didn't think that he was going to believe that Jolenta was a bad person. But again, he has met Badeni. He met Oczy. He knows that they caused this. That's why he went after them. But right here, he's acknowledging, yeah, my daughter was not at fault. She wasn't the bad guy. It was the people that poisoned her. That's the root cause. And yes, he's connected it to all the way back here with Raphael. That was the beginning. This whole movement of the earth, this whole concept here that I should have stopped way back there. I didn't stop it, and it caused the death of my daughter. So I got to find that root. I'm back on the game. I'm gonna pick back up my weapons and get back at it again because I have to find that root. I have to get revenge and find that root and snuff it out because that caused the death of my daughter. Even though in the end, he and his little guys going out there caused the death of her. her push to want to do this has caused the death of her. In proxy, he basically caused the death of her. It wasn't way back here, unfortunately. You didn't know that. But again, I do see there has been a massive change in his character. I'm just kind of curious at this point where it will end up concluding. Because, again, at this point, he still wants to root this out. He wants to stop this movement. They're literally going to make him all the way to the end, the bad guy. Which sucks. It really sucks. I was really hoping for a pivot point at some point and have him go against the system. And I don't think he is. If we've gone this far into it, we're closing in on the end of the series. We got, 5 more episodes. I think he's going to be the big bad the entire time, and that really sucks. I was really hoping for a pivot in his character and him be sort of, I don't know, maybe like a neutral party that will aid Jolenta in what she was trying to do, which was technically the good thing, that finally seeing that this religion is really what this system is, what the bad thing is. But I don't think so. He probably will at the very last minute, again, probably seeing her message in that bottle, finally see something. I don't know. It sucks. It really does suck. What else? I didn't go over Lewandlowski. I think it's Lewandlowski. I think that's his name. Dowski. I'm going to call him Dowski from now on. He was another interesting one as well because despite the fact that he's within this group, he likes the idea of religion. Now, it does seem like he is similar to everybody else not liking it for some reason, and he does want to sort of push back on the current system. But as he's talking to Draka, he is acknowledging that religion's a good thing. For a lot of people, this is going to be something that gives people strength and courage to move forward. But he also acknowledged the idea that he's trying to search for an answer that he couldn't find back in the day. When he lost his sister, at some point, her being ill and dying and asking, what was this for? Like, why was I born just to die right now? He couldn't answer her. He couldn't say it's all according to God. He couldn't answer that. He's seeking that information. But again, he is acknowledging still that while most would probably find anger in God because of that and not being able to accept that, I mean, that's like Draka. It literally, Lewandlowski is similar to Draka in a sense that he does sort of see this same moment back here where he goes, I can't accept this like everybody else does, that it's just by the grace of God. Because God, wanted this, I can't accept it. Lewandlowski's having the same issue. He's having the same conundrum there, and he's trying to seek that answer. So I do like his characters as well, and the idea that he at least kind of sees a benefit in it, while at the same time acknowledging that it does sort of have what most people would see as a massive flaw. But again, he's similar to Schmitt. He still agrees with Schmitt in the idea that, yeah, the problem is the church has been around for so long, and it may have been good at some point, but it has rotted. Like everything else that's around for a long time, it has rotted. But yeah, I think of all those moments, besides like, again, the really sucky scene with Jolenta and Novak, which, again, I really hate. I loved the scene with Jolenta listening to the story from Draka. Draka reciting it and her seeing Oczy basically sitting right there. It was like, did you confirm the right words? What if she lied to you? No, it was his words. Like, she listened to Draka and she basically just heard Oczy speaking out everything that he wrote. It was this moment where she was able to have that moment. And again, it ties in with what she originally told Oczy from the very beginning. When Oczy asked her, is it really cool? Like, reading and writing isn't a great thing. What's so great about it kind of thing? And she literally said, it's because it transcends time. Because I'm able to read, I can read the words of somebody hundreds of years ago. It's a miracle. This is truly a miracle. Writing and reading is truly a miracle because it transcends time. And right there, she experienced the miracle again. She was able to hear her lost friend from a long time ago speak once again because she was able to hear his words. It transcended time. It went into Draka's mind, and Draka was able to speak it to her. That's a miracle. It's like, again, like I mentioned before, when that scene first happened between Jolenta and Oczy, it's like it's a simple concept, but it makes perfect sense. You're able to pick up these words, and it's somebody that wrote it hundreds of years ago, and you can hear their spoken word. It's super cool. And that whole scene was way good. That was a fantastic scene with her sitting there, and again, Oczy just sitting right beside her, speaking to her. That brief little pause that she has of kind of listening to it and then go, oh yeah, I gotta write it. It's like a brief moment of her going, oh wait, it's a miracle. Oh right, I gotta write it. Gotta write it out. Anyways, good stuff. Again, I'm struggling with the series, but I'm still enjoying a lot of what it's doing. I will admit that when Jolenta showed up and it gets into Jolenta, her driving force, and then Novak gets in the picture and they're moving forward, that stuff is starting to kind of pick me back up. But I did struggle quite a bit with Draka and that whole thing. I hope they do something good with Draka's character, but Draka has been a big hold down for me. Because again, it's not that I don't care much for the whole idea of like pushing back against the religion and this rising up, because again, it's a thing. This happened. This is of course fiction, but this is something that actually happened in a sense in the history. And it's not as interesting to me as, again, that inspiration of the scholar and that driving for wanting knowledge and all that kind of stuff. That was the original hook that I had for this series. So we'll see. We'll see if it pulls me back in to keep continuing to cover it, but I just want to go on here and blab. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully this makes up for the lack of episodes 16 through 19 at least, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. If you did, hit the like button down below, comment, let me know what you think of this whole segment. Am I off base? I fully acknowledge that people enjoyed those last 4 or so episodes. It's just my reasoning. It's just my reasoning, but if you like this content and you want to support out more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.